Welcome to my channel, and I'm back with you once again with another video of Microsoft Flight Simulator. Nowadays I'm exploring the Boeing 787-10, which is the default plane for the Microsoft Flight Simulator, and it comes with the Premium Deluxe version. In this regard, I'm actually trying to cover all the aspects of a flight for this plane in different videos so that it's easy for you to look for a specific information. I've told you in those videos how to configure the CDU, how to start the plane from the cold and dark state, flight it on autopilot, descent management, and ILS approach and landing. In this video, I'm going to tell you how to perform a non-precision approach, or you can also call it the RNP approach. Now, if you're performing an ILS approach, it's a precision approach because a ground-based navigation device is used, which is known as the localizer, and you actually try to tune into the frequency of the localizer, and then you try to follow that and land the plane. But in the RNP approach, there is no ground-based navigation used. You have to use the built-in GPS navigation system of the plane to land it. So that's why it's known as the non-precision approach. So I'm going to tell you how to perform a non-precision approach in this video. While making it, I'm keeping this in my mind that the beginners will be watching it. So I will be trying to touch the basics. But still, if you're watching it, maybe you will be able to fly an RNAV approach or an RNP approach. But for this, I think if you have some expertise on the ILS approach, it's better to go and watch those videos and then come back and watch it. So now I'm going to do a short flight from Riyadh to Abu Dhabi. Right now I am at the runway 33 right, and for Abu Dhabi I have selected runway 31 left. So now what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to select the arrivals. I've already populated the flight plan, as you can see it on your screens. Let me just zoom out a bit so you can see the flight plan is there. I've selected the departure. Now for the arrivals, what you can do is this. You can select the arrival from this page, from departure arrival. So now you have to select the arrival, and for the arrival, you will not be selecting ILS, you will be selecting RNAV approach or the RNP approach. There are different names for this approach. RNP is actually required navigational precision approach, and RNAV is actually area navigation. So these both names go. Okay, so over here in the CDU you will see RNV, which means RNAV. So I'm going to select runway 31 left, and the procedure will be RNAV Y. So this is the one that I'm going to use. And for the stars, which is the standard terminal arrival, I will be using UKIL2J. Now, transition, we have to select the transition. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 different transitions coming. So let's see which transition to select for the RNAV approach for runway 31 left. So this is the Navigraph chart, and I'm not opening it in the Microsoft Flight Simulator. I don't know, after the last update, there is some issue. Every time when I open the Navigraph charts in the Flight Simulator, my Flight Simulator hangs. I don't know, there is some setting issue, whatever. I'm not trying to fix it, so that's why I'm using the Navigraph chart software, which is not a part of the Microsoft Flight Simulator. So that's why I'm just showing it to you over here. So now you can see that the flight plan is there in the Navigraph charts, and this is the approach plate for the RNAV. If you don't know how to select it, I'll just tell you. Just simply go to the approach, and over here for runway 31 left, you will have different approaches: ILS category 2 and 3, then RNP approach and RNP Y approach. So there are 2 different types of approaches. Little bit of difference in the procedures, but right now I'm selecting the RNP Y runway 31 left approach. So now you can see this approach plate. The plane will be coming to Ukili over here on this point. Then it will go to Orgad, Videx, and Itugo, ITUGO. So this is the transition that you're going to select. Although this flight plan is not correct because it's taking it as an ILS approach, because in the sim brief you cannot specify that. So that's why it's coming like this. So it's actually a procedure for the ILS approach, the one that's populated by the sim brief. For the RNAV, you come over here to this point and then you actually go like this and then you land. So this is the point. And there are a few things that you have to look at. VDIX, you should be moving towards Itugo, and then afterwards you will go for the final approach. So that's it. So I'm going to select this one, and during the flight, when I will be doing the descent management and I will be entering all the information for the descent, then we will just go through all the procedure, the speed and the altitude, because you have to control it, and then we will perform an RNP approach and landing. So let's select Itugo and press execute. Now just click this option plan, go to legs, and just keep on pressing step, and just cycle through the flight plan. And that's it. Now you can see, as per the approach plate, the flight plan is updated. VDEX, and then Itugu, and then over here you will land on this runway 31 left. So that's it for the flight planning part. Now I will just continue this video from where I will start the descent, and then I will tell you how to manage the descent and then perform an RNP approach. So right now I'm at the cruising altitude and I have to prepare for the descent. So first of all, let's go to this option in the CDU, go to init index, and then approach. And over here you have to enter the gross weight so that you can calculate the approach speeds at different flap settings. I will be using full flaps, 30 degrees of flap, so I have to calculate the speed. Right now the fuel is 9.3. So with this fuel, this weight is coming off the plane, gross weight. We have to actually subtract the fuel burnt till the landing in order to set the weight for the landing. Go to this option progress, and over here you will see that once the plane lands, the fuel available will be 6.7, and right now you have 9.3 tons of fuel. So 2.6 tons of fuel will be burnt till the landing, so you have to basically subtract it from the gross weight. So it will be 181.3. So this will result in 178.7, 178.7. Just enter it over here and you will have new speeds with different flap settings. So with 30 degrees of flap, your speed will be 146 knots during the approach. This is one thing. Now the second thing is the minimums. You have to actually enter the minimums. Let's refer to the airport charts, and if you look at this approach plate, you will see that the straight in landing runway 31 left is having different decision heights and altitude. So you can see that the runway elevation is 83 feet. So you should be 360 feet, 67 feet above the runway at some point, where you will hear this option minimums. Why you have to set minimums? Because in ILS you can be 100 feet above the ground, depending upon the type of ILS you're going to perform, the type of equipment the plane has, and the type of equipment which is placed at the runway. So if the runway is equipped with category 3 and your plane is also capable of carrying category 3, so maybe your decision height can be even 50 feet. But as this is a non-precision approach, so that's why your decision height is a bit higher, because then you have to visually look at the runway and see whether you will be able to land or not. Are you properly aligned with the runway? Are you going to follow the glide slope in a proper way so that you can land? And just to tell you one thing, that in ILS, the glide slope is this. You call it the glide slope, the angle at which you basically approach the runway. But in the RNP approach, it is known as the glide path. So there's a bit difference. So right now you can see that there are different decision heights and altitudes coming. So if your altitude is, decision altitude is 450, your height is 367 feet, because it adds this 83 feet of the runway. So depending upon the precision of the GPS that you have in the plane, you set the heights. This is category A, B, C, and D. To be on the safe side, I can set D, decision height, or the decision altitude, which is 480 feet above the ground. So somewhere at this point, I will be at 480 feet, and I will hear the sound minimums, in which I have to, at this point, I have to look at the runway and see whether the plane is properly aligned with the runway or not, and it's going to touch the runway at the right point. If I feel uncomfortable with that, then I have to perform a missed approach, then go around and come back and land again. So let's keep decision altitude 480 feet, which will be 397 feet above the runway. So go over here in the EFIS, which is the Electronic Flight Instrument System, this part of the plane, and just set the units. You will see two units, baro and radio. Remember this thing that you use radio for calculating the minimums if the ground is leveled. If you are sure that the ground before the runway is level, because in this method, a plane sends a radio signal to the ground and calculates the altitude. And with the baro, it's regardless of the ground. Due to the barometric pressure, the plane actually calculates the decision height or the decision altitude. So that's why it's better to use baro than radio. So set it to baro and set the height to 480. Oops, it actually goes very fast if you just move the mouse quickly. Have to have some patience in setting this thing up. That's it. So now the baro is set, and you have also set the approach settings, 30 degrees of flaps with 146 knots, and that's it. Now this is the top of descent. Now the descent will start, and once I'm near this point Ukili, then I will take you from there in order to tell you how to manage your descent for the RNP approach, and then perform a landing. Now I'm near the point Ukili. At this point, my altitude should be below 15,000, and the speed should be 250 knots, as you can see it over here in this option, legs, 250. But the speeds are not coming correct, because as per the approach plate, at VRAM you should be at 210 knots. So that's why I will be consulting the star chart and plus the approach plate. So let's go to Navigraphs and have a look at it. So as you can see, at Ukili, 250 knots, because the altitude is getting set by the VNAV. So I'm just going to control the speed. I can also give control to the autopilot, but then when you start extending the flaps, the speed reduces a lot. At this point, Tonki, maximum speed is 230 knots. And at VRAM, if you just look at this point, at VRAM, speed should be a maximum 210 knots. Okay, so that's it. So this is something that you have to consult. And then over here, different speeds are coming at AA711, 180 knots at this point. So this is something that we have to keep in our mind. At AA713, maximum 220 knots, the speed limits are coming. But already at VRAM, I will slow down to 210 knots. Okay. So, and AA711, 180 knots. This is what we have to keep in our mind. So now the speed is in control, and just remember this thing, it's a very short approach. As you can see, you will have very less time to basically align with the runway. So that's why you have to control the speed a lot. And one more thing which I would like to tell you right now, the plane is not descending. It's stabilized at 15,000 feet, because at this point, VRAM, the plane can be at 11,000 feet or above. So that's why the plane is actually cruising at 15,000 right now. So what I'm going to do is this. I can further reduce the speed to 210 knots. because at VRAM 210. And with this, I can also extend the flaps. Get this error, just ignore it because the speed is reducing, so you don't have to worry about it. So this is a good time to reduce the speed, because if the plane is descending, then it gets a bit difficult to control the speed. So that's why when it's going at the cruise without any descent rate, then you can adjust the speed, because then it's done quickly. So I can set the flaps to the limit. You can see the flap limits at 260 knots. You can have 1 degree of flaps at 245 and so on and so forth. So if my speed is at 210 knots, I can even have flaps of 18 degrees. So it's good to have flaps, because the flaps not only provide drag, help you in reducing the speed, but also provide an additional lift at slow speeds. Okay, so now I have said everything. And now when the plane descends, it will be easy to maintain the speed. But right now, as you can see, I have extended too much flaps, so that's why the autopilot is giving power to the engines. So you can also do something economical. If you see your speed is in control, you can also have flaps at 5 or maybe 10 degrees, because as I've told you before, the flaps also provide drag. So that's why you have to manage it accordingly. Now the descent has started. As you can see, the plane has started to descend. One thing which I would like to tell you is this, that although in the normal descent as well, even if you're performing an ILS approach, you will see the vertical deviation and the lateral deviation, which is known as the VDEV and the LDEV. So that's automatically appears as soon as the plane starts to land. LDEV actually is your lateral deviation, which tells you whether your plane is following the flight path or not, this straight line. So if your plane is following this line, it will be in the center. And this actually, the vertical deviation indicates your vertical deviation from the flight path. Right now you can see that I'm slightly above the vertical deviation, but it will come in the middle. If it doesn't, and if you're not really okay with this, then you can all the time, you can just take this plane out of the VNAV mode, and you can press this vertical speed button and then adjust the vertical speed so that it remains in the middle. But right now, it's properly managed, so nothing to be really worried about. I think I've seen the Ferrari world. For the first time in the video, I'm seeing this Ferrari world. I've been seeing it a lot, because if you take off from this side of the runway, because there are 2 runways, 31 right and left. So this is, if you're coming from here, this is 31 right and another one is on the left. You see Ferrari world on your right side after the takeoff. Okay, so that's it. And VDEX, as I've told you before, the altitude can be 11,000 and above. So it's at 12,500 feet, which is good. So you just have to keep an eye on the vertical deviation. If your plane is not following the descent profile, then you can always use vertical speed to control it. But right now, I'm just letting the VNAV do all the work, and I'm just looking at everything. Now the plane is going to cross 10,000 feet. As soon as the plane is below 10,000 feet, I can also turn on the lights. The seatbelt signs are set to auto. I can also bring up the checklist. Speed brakes, we have to arm the speed brake for landing. And that's it. And landing gear and flaps will be down after 6 DME. So I can always get rid of this checklist. So auto brake is set to max, and the speed brake is also armed. If there was a landing performance calculator, then obviously I would have also set the auto brakes accordingly, because right now in this plane the landing calculator is not available. At Itugo, 9,000 and below, so the plane will go below 9,000 feet. You just have to keep an eye on all this, because you have to make sure that the plane is actually following it. Because of the GPS coordinates, as I've told you before, this is an RNAV approach, so it's area navigation, and area navigation is based on the GPS coordinates. And every GPS coordinate has a speed restriction and an altitude restriction. So that's why the plane actually follows those restrictions. So when the flight management computer and guidance system sees there's a GPS coordinate with a certain height and a speed, so the autopilot actually adjusts it accordingly. Right now you can see I was slightly higher than the descent profile. As you can see, this vertical deviation indicator is going below. So you can adjust it, because then after this turn it will be difficult to activate approach. This is actually known as the integrated approach navigation, IAN. So if you're not performing ILS, and if you're performing an RNAV approach, then it's known as an IAN. The procedure is the same. Once you aligned with this line, or just before this, you can also activate approach, and the plane will actually then follow this vertical deviation and the lateral deviation. Will try to travel in this line, following this line, your lateral deviation and your vertical deviation. So you just have to look at it, and plus you also have to create visuals with the runway and see whether you can see the runway or not. And at descent height, if the runway is not really clear, you cannot see the runway, and if you are not aligned, then you can always perform a go around. So at A711, at this point, my speed should be 180 knots for this turn, because then we have to go for the landing. Right now you can see the plane is turning right, and the next point is AA713, and I can get rid of this message. It will keep on appearing because, and slight changes in the speed, you get this error. 220 knots at this point it's coming, and you can see AA711 180 coming, Kusok 175, Catig at this point 160. So I will adjust the speed accordingly now. These speeds are correct. This speed is not correct. It should be 210 knots as per the approach plate. Okay, so let's just wait for it, and also set the heading. So in case if you take the plane out of the heading mode, you don't activate the IN, then you might want to travel based on the heading mode instead of flying in vertical. So the heading of the runway is 306 degrees. So this is what I'm going to set over here, 306. That's it. Now you can see plane is slightly above the descent profile. What I can do is I can also show you how you can manage it. So what you can do is this: you can adjust the vertical speed in such a way that it comes in the middle. You can be lower than the descent profile but cannot be higher. So, and you can also see this arc. This actually indicates that at which point you will be at the given altitude. So my target altitude is 1900 for the descent. So that's why it's telling me that by this point I will be at 1900 if I keep on descending at the same rate. Right now you can see I'm now going lower than the descent profile. So that's why this triangle has gone above. So I can always take it out. Okay. You can always adjust the vertical speed like this. So you can activate VRAM, and then you can, get back the speed, and hope that the autopilot actually follows the descent profile. And at any point I can also deactivate the autopilot and try to land it myself, but I'm going to just show you how you will follow the descent after 1900, because after 1900 the plane has to descend to the runway with 3 degrees of angle. You can see -3. This is your indicator for the, initially if you're talking about ILS, this is your ILS indicator, the descent for the ILS, and now it's for the RNP approach. So, and plus you have got these 2 circles coming over here in the heads-up display. The smaller one is known as the flight director Q, and flight director Q, sorry, and the bigger one is your flight path vector symbol. So just make sure that the smaller one stays in the middle, and you can perform the landing even if you turn off the autopilot. So right now I can further reduce the speed. I can bring it to 180 knots. Now you can see the speed is getting reduced, and plus this is in the middle. So that's why I'm a bit comfortable, because the plane is following the descent profile. I was just trying to see if I can spot the runway. I think this is the runway. Yeah, this is the airport, 31 right, and this is the left. Great. So A711 3000 and above. So plane will actually level off at 3000, and then it will further start to descend. But at this point, can I activate APP? Let's see. If I turn on the APP, you will see now there is another diamond appearing. The triangle appearing, an indicator. Basically, this is for your approach, the APP. Just like the ILS, if you have your ILS, then you see a diamond, which tells you whether you are following the descent profile or not, and you're going to follow the ILS or not. But in this case, you will see this triangle. It should be here in the middle. So at CATAG 160, I will reduce the speed at this point, QSOC, and I'll just keep it at 160. Now the plane has started to descend further. Now you can see it's coming in the middle, so it will remain here. And then once it's in the middle, then the plane will actually follow this. Okay, now the plane is leveling off at 1900. Just 800 or 700 feet to go. The plane will actually keep on descending. Now you can see the triangle has disappeared for the APP, and now glide path is coming, GP, which means that the plane is now going to follow the glide path. Now the VNAV mode is not active, because now the APP has actually taken over, and now the plane will actually follow the glide path. And if you're used to what you can say, the ILS approach, you will see that once you are near the runway, you will see land 3, because that's for the auto landing. But in this case, there will be no auto landing because it's a non-precision approach at 6 DME. I will lower the gears, and I've now reduced the speed to 160. And in the front, you can see the runway, and I can also extend full flaps once the gears are down. Have a turn on the lights. Oh, forgot to do that, so let's turn on the lights. Should have done it below 10,000. Okay, now the lights are on, and plus now I can extend full flaps, and I can set the speed to the reference speed for the landing. This is your reference. Now the plane will actually keep on descending, and now you can see the plane is below 1900, so it will keep on descending. Over here you can also adjust your altitude for the missed approach. I think that's 4,000 feet. If you declare a missed approach, you can always set the altitude over here. Now you can see that the flight director Q is in the middle. The flight path vector symbol is keeping it in the center, so which means you are following the path. The speed is good, and your descent is also coming. Now 920 feet at 480, you will hear the sound minimums, which means that you can still decide whether to go with the landing or not. And I can also deactivate the autopilot and try to land the plane myself. Obviously, you cannot do an auto land, so that's why. Let's disengage the autopilot. I'm not disengaging the auto throttle, so the throttle will be controlled by the autopilot. It will keep it at 146, but I will control the descent rate. So now you can see I'm trying to keep this in the middle as the autopilot was doing it, so you can just keep on following it. 360, 370. Approaching minimums. So at this point, I can see whether I can abort the landing on. Now you can see I was coming slightly low. You see the PAPI lights over here, all red. So at this point, you can even decide to go around or not. But then as I was flying it myself, so that's why I can always control it. It shouldn't be happening like this. There should be 2 red and 2 white. Now I can land. Activate reverse thrust. Brakes. Let's try to stop the plane, and that's it. So that's how you perform an RNP approach and landing with this plane. I hope you will be able to do it. Just try different approaches, try different airports. I will be also doing some live videos because previously I didn't have a proper equipment to go actually live, but now I'm planning nowadays to go live on my YouTube channel. So hopefully in the future you will be also seeing me live on my channel. Thank you very much for staying with me. Have a nice day. Hope to see you soon.